Good afternoon to all our attendees on episode 5 of our Bridging the Gulf public education series hosted by the Middle East Institute at the National University of Singapore. This is episode 5, as I said, and the last episode we covered Kuwait, and before that we did Saudi Arabia. So today we are covering the Sultanate of Oman, and we are pleased to have with us two distinguished speakers today. And I will shortly be introducing the two speakers, but before that, let me give you a quick introduction about the Sultanate. And let me share my screen. Now, if you look at the map on your screen, you see, the geographical shape and location of Oman itself. And I would like to point out a little fun fact, which I done a little blown up map of the Musandam Peninsula, and you see this on the right of your screen. The Musandam Peninsula is a little finger of land under the control of the Sultanate of Oman, and it's very strategic because it sits next to the Strait of Hormuz, where 1/6 of the world's oil passes through this strait and this shipping route, and it's a choke point for oil all over the world. So, most of us, if you were to Google the strategic importance of the Musandam Peninsula, you will find out about its relationship with oil. But what else can we know about the Musandam Peninsula? And if you do a quick Google image or even an image search on another search engine such as Pexels or Getty Images or Unsplash, you'll find very, very raw scenic beauty. And this is the kind of scenery that Oman possesses if you haven't already visited the country. And arguably it has some of the most beautiful landscapes in the Gulf. And of course the Musandam Peninsula also it's home to dolphins, where where tours are available for you to go swimming with dolphins, and of course also on the little ferries and dhows of Oman. Another place that's worth visiting is Salalah, down south of Oman, and you can see from the photos here, it has also very, very, very scenic and breathtaking scenery of the port here, and also conservation efforts, and also wildlife. And Salalah is located, as I said, on the south of Oman. So you can see that besides the capital Muscat, where you'll find a 16th century Portuguese fort, a souk, a market, that's traditional and well preserved. There are also other areas of Oman worth exploring and worth discovering. As you can see, Salalah, as I showed you in the photos earlier of today, doesn't differ much from the photos that we see here in 1932. And these are the aerial photographs of Salalah taken by the British naval staff back then. So what is important, and I think our first speaker will outline later on, is how Oman has a multi-ethnic history. It has also a history where the sea and the coast reconciles with the desert, and this is also seen through the music that Omani culture produces. As you can see, you have the men's dance called the Rasta, and the description is there where men stand opposite each other carrying swords, guns, and dance to the music. But there are also dances, African influenced dance such as the Maidan dance, as you can see, and other types of more coastal sea-related dances. So this is the kind of history that we are going to be looking at from our first speaker's presentation as well. But also from our second speaker's presentation for today, we'll look at the economic development under the late Sultan Qaboos bin Said, who is the Arab world's longest serving ruler from 1970 to 2020. And he was succeeded just last year by Sultan Haitham bin Tariq, where there was also a new economic vision called Oman Vision 2040, which our second speaker will also be looking at in depth. So with that, I stop my introduction, and I would like to now introduce our speakers for today. We have Dr. Muhammad Saad Al-Muqaddam, who is an assistant professor of modern Omani history at the Sultan Qaboos University. He has previously held senior appointments at the College of Arts and Social Sciences as assistant dean for the college, as dean of student affairs, and also the head of history department. He obtained his PhD from Exeter University, and his research interest, besides on the Sultanate, also covers China-Oman relations. And so we are pleased to welcome Dr. Muhammad today for today's webinar, who will give his presentation 20 minutes, followed by another presentation by our second speaker, Dr. Yusuf Hamad Abelushi, who is a leading economist in Oman with 20 years of professional experience and previously held positions such as the Chief Economist of Oman Vision 2040 Task Force. He also previously served at the Central Bank of Oman as advisor of the Foreign Direct Investment to Oman's Supreme Council for Planning. And also his PhD was obtained from King's College London, where he looked at the foreign direct investment impact on Omani private sector. So his latest monograph by Dr. Yusuf is published in 2018, entitled The Omani Economy, Globalization, and the Winds of Change. So today I'm very glad to have two distinguished speakers here. We will start with the history of the Sultanate, and I'm very pleased to pass it on to Dr. Muhammad right now, who will be talking to us and taking us through Oman's history. Dr. Muhammad, please, and if you could unmute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clements, for this wonderful, interesting introduction. I am really honored to be in your program with this Middle East institution in Singapore, the beautiful country I've been visited twice. And thank you, real, because you started with the strategic location of Oman and the map of Oman. I always said, if you want to understand Oman history, you started with the strategic location of Oman through the history. So thank you for your introduction. And you gave us a good about beginning of Oman history. I said three themes to understand Oman history: the strategic location, the tribal structure, and the Ibadism also. So Oman has a long history. In the morning, I was discussing with my friend, he said 8,000 long years. But I have 20 minutes, so I can say some element about the Oman history. As you said, the strategic location of Oman, Oman is the center among the old civilization of Iraq, Persia, India, Yemen. And one thing also, Oman became the part of the Indian Ocean rim, if you say about this strategic location. So Oman has this long history from the prehistory to the Islamic period, which part became Oman part of the Islamic state. And also, you see, Oman played a great role in the Indian Ocean ring. If we started with the Islamic history, very long Oman, so part of the Islamic state, then Oman have challenged with the Umayyad and the Abbasi because of the rule of the Ibadism in Oman history. We have many Imamate in Oman history, it's a long history. So if we start with the modern history, Oman, the first Arab country, faced the occupation of the first European power, the Portuguese, 1507. And that's why, because the Portuguese, they want to control the trade of Indian Ocean, they control like Macau, Malacca, Taiwan, then you must control the Omani ports. So at the beginning of 16th century, Oman became under the Portuguese. Then from the 17th century, we have the new Imamate, they call it the Ya'ariba dynasty, and they built the same ships like the Portuguese. The Omani extend to the Indian Ocean, they control the East Africa, and they've been with the war with the Portuguese. And the Portuguese and the European, they said Oman is the bannock of European in the Indian Ocean. So Oman became a very strong nation with a strong fleet. And we have this relation with the Indian, even with the China, we have a special relation since before AD from the Canton. And the first Arab sailor arrived in Canton from Oman, Abu Ubaidah. We call it the Sandabad of Oman. In 1980, Oman sent a ship, a special, they call it Sohar, to Canton. And we have the jewelry of Muscat. He's giving to Singapore, the museum in Singapore. So Oman, if you see, this location played a great role in Oman history. In the 19th century, the beginning of the 19th century, Oman controlled the east, controlled the port of Bandar Abbas from the Qajar dynasty and the Strait of Hormuz. And Said bin Sultan, he moved the capital from Muscat to Zanzibar. So Oman became like a commercial empire from Mozambique to the port of the Gulf and the Indian Ocean. If you see in the 19th century with the great European imperialism, Oman has sent the first armed mission to New York, 1840, with the ambassador. If you see how the Europeans divide Africa, they control Aden, they have war with China. The more so Oman, they sent mission to New York, 1840. With this strong commercial empire, Said bin Sultan, we have a new element in the history of the region. We have the influence now with the Great Britain, French, the Dutch. So Oman, they were first expelled the Portuguese 1650. Then they extend to the East Africa. They built very strong naval power in the Indian Ocean. In the middle of the 19th century, Said bin Sultan passed away and the Omani commercial empire was divided between his sons. So we have a challenge in the end of the 19th century, and this challenge has come from the European power, from also the element of the Ibadism in the interior, and this was, they call it, the new Imamate in 1913, and they have the Treaty of Sib 1920. We have Imamate in the interior, we have the Sultanate in the coast. In the 20th century, because I have a little bit time, a long history of Oman, in the 20th century, something happened in the whole Middle East, especially in the Gulf, with the discovery of oil. So Oman started to explore the oil, and this oil was in the Imamate territory. Then Said bin Taimur, the father of the late Majesty, he canceled this treaty and he controlled the country. They call it Jabal Akhbar War from 1954 until 1959. The first Oman export oil in 1967. So we have in Dhofar, the rebellion of Dhofar. The rebellion of Dhofar was assisted by the Marxists, a new regime in South Yemen. So with this political turmoil, we have a new era of His Majesty Sultan Qaboos bin Said in 1970. You see, we don't even have high school. If you come to Oman, we don't have high school. We don't have ministers. We were in war. We have Imamate outside Oman. We have Dhofari rebellion, Oman very poor, divided. And they call it Oman, the country, they call it Oman and Muscat. His Majesty started a new era to build a new nation. That's what happened in Singapore with Liu Quinn. And he started a modern state of Singapore. So His Majesty Qaboos bin Said, new policy to have all the element to build a new nation, Oman, a modern nation. The rebellion of Dhofar is ended. The leader of the Imamate returned to Oman. And most of the Omani in the Gulf and East Africa returned to Oman and to build a new nation, a modern state. So if you see in 50 years, His Majesty passed away on 10th of January, 2020. And if you see in 50 years, the old generation, they will not believe. We don't have high school. Now we have University Sultan Qaboos, we have University in Salalah, we have University in Nizwa, in Al-Baraymi, and His Majesty built united country, and you call it Sultanate of Oman, with the vision to build a tolerance, equality of Omani people to build this nation. In a short time, if you see what's happening in the Middle East, too much crisis, Oman foreign policy was a great element of his policy. In 19, we have the war of Iraq-Iran. We have the Camp David. Oman foreign policy, neutral. And we, Oman as a country, the foreign policy, they try also to mediation between this crisis. So Oman was trusted by United States, by Iran, by the Gulf, because we are part of the GCC Council. So this policy of His Majesty succeed to make Oman a country of stability and the peace. If we see about the economic, of course, Yusuf will talk about the economic side about Oman, but also about people participation. We have now Majlis Shura, like a parliament is elected by the people. We have state council, and we have women participated in the election, the right of the woman also, we have also. So if you see this participation in political process, stage by stage, you know, he succeeded in Oman with the system, they call it the basic law in 1996. Equality, justice, protect the free of religious also. The people, whatever they are religious, they are free to build their church, temples, or mosques. So this is the basic law in 1996, the first Omani constitution in a modern history. So this policy of His Majesty gave Oman a great image in the Middle East with too much crisis. If you see the Arab Spring, where they call it the Arab Spring, you know, Oman, they have the same position. We don't support any militia. We don't involve in the internal. We try Oman to make negotiation. What's happening in Yemen now, in Syria, and Iraq, and Libya. So His Majesty in 50 years, real, it is like I said, it is like a miracle, you know. He built a good nation. And a good relation, we have a special relation with China, with Japan, with the Western powers, with the Indian, our neighbors, of course, with the Iranian. So if you see this, a good relation with all because of His Majesty foreign policy. And if you come to Oman now, you will see the modern city of Muscat, modernization in many cities in Oman, good economy, and the free of education. If you see it, we have a free of education, even the level of the universities, you know. So in 50 years and 4,000 years of history of Oman, we can have talked too long about the Oman strategic location, as Dr. Kelmans, he mentioned from the beginning to understand Oman history. So I have 2 minutes or 3 minutes to talk. When His Majesty passed, his cousin Sultan Haytham replaced him. Sultan Haytham, he graduated from Oxford. He was Minister of Culture. He was at the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He was behind the new Omani Museum. So he had the same vision of His Majesty. And one thing, the continuation of His Majesty foreign policy, internal economic policy. So you can see when His Majesty selected him as a new Sultan, he will continue His Majesty policy regarding economy, foreign affairs, social affairs. So we can see the future with optimistic stability, peace, prosperity, and a good relation with the international community. So I think we have, Dr. Sultan, we have similarity with Singapore. about the new state when your country started a new modernization. So we call Oman a new modernization. Oman a special image, culture and diplomacy in the Gulf and the region. So I have a long talk to about, I have been 30 years teaching at the university about Oman history, about Oman relation with China, with the United States. Oman, the first Arab country to sign a treaty 1833 with the United States. At that time, they were in the East Coast. They are not expanding in the American continental. Oman has a treaty with the Great Britain, 1798, with the French, 1844. And you have a long history, of course, with China and South Asia, because Oman is a part of the Indian Ocean. So, and we have a student from China, from Japan, from many countries to study about Oman history, even from Europe also. So I think Mr. Dr. Kelman, you're watching me now. Thank you for this a great opportunity to talk and your programs and from your institution. And I can talk many hours, but the program gave me 20. I don't know if I'm, because I like to be stick with the timing. And this is Oman. Oman, a country with peace, stability, prosperity, and good relation with all. So if you come to Oman, please let us to have a good cappuccino in Oman. Very good, you know. Thank you for this opportunity. Did I finish the timing, Doctor?
Yes, Dr. Mohammed. Yeah, thank you. You made a lot of key points on Oman's historical timeline.
Yeah.
And what was interesting was the Sinbad that you mentioned, but we'll come back to you later during the Q&A. And I will urge our audience to put forward your questions in the chat box, in the Zoom chat box, if you have any. We do have one more speaker on board. So while he's talking, you can always, of course, brainstorm and adjust your thinking caps and put in your questions in the Zoom chat box. So thank you, Dr. Mohammed, and I will pass it on to Dr. Yusuf, who will be covering more on economic aspects on the areas of modernization that the Sultanate has experienced, and also going forward, what are the objectives of Vision 2040? Dr. Yusuf, all yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a real pleasure and opportunity really to speak, and it's really a wonderful opportunity for us to share some of our what we call it, history, some of our spirit to the futures. And I'm really glad to speak after Dr. Mohammed. He's a well-known figure in the country and well-respected scholar. I'll be covering the economic side of Oman, and if we'll move to this is the scenery, one of the scenery of the beautiful Oman. Honestly, it's really we call it a country of beauty. So I really also like to invite you all to come and visit the country. So moving to the first slide, I'd like to explain that Oman has when it comes to economy, yes, we do have a great history and we are proud of it, but also we do have also good progress when it comes to our economy diversification. I'll start with three parts, or I divide it to the three parts. First part, which is our modern Renaissance, as Dr. Mohammed mentioned, start 1970s with His Majesty Sultan Qaboos, and where Oman was really starting from almost scratch. There was no proper education, no proper schooling, no proper banking system, currency. All we are really starting from scratch. It was really very dark. People was, relying heavily on agriculture, on fisheries, and His Majesty and the team really worked so hard to move Oman, and Oman was first country maybe in the region start plan for diversifying the economy. Although until now we have a limited success in diversification, but we do, I mean, from early 80s and from the Vision 2020, Oman really try to move from what they call it, oil-based economy to more diversified. That was the first, I mean, we are talking about the first part, which is Oman grow by 7.5% growth, which is really a great growth rate. And that because, as I mentioned, starting from scratch. If we take it, the Vision 2020, which is ended only last year from 1995 to 2020, Oman grow by almost 3.5, which is also not bad looking. I mean, but the growth was driven mainly with the oil price, and Oman succeed to build a very wise infrastructures. We are proud of also our education system here. We are having a modern airport, modern port, and very nice, what they call it, infrastructures. That will take us to where we want to go, which is our vision, Vision 2040, which we are aiming also to achieve 5% growth. It is also a challenging growth because we are having a lot of what they call it difficulty looking to the global pandemic, COVID, changing also on the energy landscape. You know, the Oman and the GCC country heavily rely on oil, and oil has a lot of pressure, both in the demand side and supply side. I mean, we have renewable coming, we have also shale oil is coming. There is also a huge improvement on the technology, fourth industrial revolution, which is also make renewable energy more, or they call it more acceptable. If we'll move to we'll be moving more. I have a lot of slides, and we can share all this. It's just quite long presentation. I'll be not covering it in details, but we will share it with you. I'll be more than happy to do so. Please move to the second slide. So this is the growth. The growth in Oman, honestly, like other GCC country, I think you already covered Saudi Arabia. You will cover maybe Kuwait, Qatar, UAE, Bahrain. You will see the same story that historically growth tightly linked with the oil price. So always you will hear here in the GCC country, people always talk about diversification, but unfortunately until today, almost all the country has very limited success when it comes to diversification, and that due to many reasons. One of them is the Dutch, what they call it, diseases, because we are having oil, we are having great revenue coming from oil. That, I mean, make the whole economic model linked to the oil, and other sector like our Oman has. It's just a huge country with huge space. We are having a great sector when it comes to the fisheries, when it comes to logistics, as he mentioned, Dr. Muhammad, with the location. We are having tourism. The country is really, really beautiful, particularly for adventures. We are having also mining. We are having manufacturing. So a lot of opportunity which can really move Oman from the oil-based to more diversified economy. If we'll move to the slide, we can see that there is increasing share for non-oil, but still it's not up to the expectations. I mean, we was thinking that by 2020 oil and gas will be only 10%, but it's still playing a significant role. It is 85% of our public finance. It is around 75% from our total export. It's about more than 50% of our GDP. So still we are very much linked to it. So moving to more slide, to the next slide. Yes. So we have a great progress when it comes to the economy in terms of the growth for per capita. Alhamdulillah, I mean, we are lucky here in Oman. I mean, We are having free educations, free health care. We are having very good lifestyle, and government really build very nice infrastructures. Per capita increase and doubled significantly. Also educations, I think already Dr. Muhammad touched, infrastructures, peace and stability. This is also one of the features we are always proud of Oman. Cultures and identity. Also, we maintain our cultures. You will see Omani always wearing his national and always being committed to the culture, to the identity in Oman. Please move. So let's go, let's talk about that's the good thing. What's the bad thing? The bad thing that our economy, as I mentioned, and that this story is not only with Oman, it's with others. Our revenue came, if you see here on the left, from mainly from export and mainly from oil export. That go to the government hand or government budget. They spend it in two ways. One, as a current for salaries, for current expenditures, and for capital expenditure, building road, building hospital, making project. Both spending create a demand. That demand, unfortunately, majority of it fulfilled from outside. We are relying heavily on importing goods, importing services, and also even labors. The problem that make our economy kind of weak, because honestly, we are not manufacturing much. We are not growing what we eat. We are not really having like industry of textile, of surfaces. A lot of Omani going for medication outside, a lot of Omani going for studying abroad, which is, it has a lot of leakages. So this is one of our serious problem, which being addressed in Oman Vision 2040, and we are talking here about attracting more foreign direct investment, building more into upstream and downstream industry, making whatever possible to be made in Oman, we need to make it. If we cannot do it alone, we need really to and honestly, that is a clear direction in Oman Vision 2040. Because of what Dr. Muhammad, because of our great international relationship, we are not having any enemy. I mean, we can get capital maybe from our neighbor GCC, we can get technology from our friend in Europe, we can export to big market in US. I mean, we are having our friend in Asia to also, it's complementary. So we are working on it, and things is really looking very positive and very promising, and we are full of confidence that we will be able to work on this problem of business cycle. Please move to the next slide. Oman private sector. One of the problems that our private sector is very much rely on the government. So I mean, there is please move. So if we'll see the features of Omani private sector, there is a lot of positive, but also there is a lot of negative. The positive features that we are having, look, any business you will do it in Oman, trust me, you can make a lot of money. So I encourage you, all of you, if anyone has businesses, his cousin, has factory, we can easily help to replicate it in Oman. Government really supporting this kind. We'd like to produce food, we'd like to produce manufacturing stuff, we like to produce many things. We are, because of our location, accessibility to Yemen, which is will be, inshallah, will be peace and will need to be rebuilt soon. Our friend in Africa, because of our historical link, because we are part of GCC, we are still part of Indian Ocean. So that is really give us a privilege. So I mean, that's why in the end of this presentation, you will find my contact, and what honestly, after 20 years of serving in the government, central bank, Supreme Council, Vision 2040, I decided to jump and work on trying to implement the vision. What is the vision? The vision that to move from government-driven model to the private sector and businesses-driven model. One of the problems in the economy that the government is dominant. They are the investor, they are the job creator, they are the engine of growth. So that is because I mentioned, because of oil, because of the challenges, is not sustainable, and we need to move. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating here. Oman has all what it takes. Trust me. People, infrastructures, resources. We are, alhamdulillah, we are lucky. Not like other even GCC. We are having, as I said, we are having not only beautiful country, we are having a country with full of resources, natural resources. If you look to our sea, if you look to our mountain, if you look to our what they call it, desert, all is full of resources. It is our duty to really think differently and try to connect those strengths. Please proceed. Let's make it, I mean, let's move quickly here. So again, the state business relationship is also, as I mentioned here, government is really playing the heavy role. It is really deciding about priorities, about what needs to be done, and private sector link with it. That is, we are saying this is one of the problems, we are working on it. Please move. The second, move the slide, please. One more. Labor market also has a lot of problem. Not only because we are relying on expat. Expat are welcome in Oman. This is by nature. We really respect expat. We really admire that they help us building the Oman we know today. But the problem that their size is around 85%. From the total labor force. And that is not fair because Omani are growing and looking for the job. The problem here that 85% of those labor force are having secondary school and below. And this is the real problem. We cannot compete. We cannot be moved to innovation. We cannot move to manufacturing, relying on very cheap, uneducated labor force. So Vision 2040 addressing that and trying really to attract talent. I mean, and also majority of our laborers came from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. They are our neighbors. We like them, but also they are not a good spender. I mean, because of their skills. I mean, we can see huge outflow worker remittances, which is not helping the economy to grow. So please move. So we have challenge in the labor, as I mentioned. This number I already mentioned here. So please move to other slide. Okay. So there are several challenges facing Oman, and when it comes to diversification, create a job for Omani, enhancing our competitiveness, because when you've been 50 years relying on the government, relying on we are having a rentier economy, rentier mentality, and that is really is not helping. So social people need to change a lot of their mindset. That we need to work only in the government. We need only to, we don't have that culture of saving, culture of producing, culture of exporting, which is all need to be built on. So please proceed. So challenges is clear here. Please move. Let's move to the Vision Oman 2040, which is the paradigm shift. So please move. That will be left to you. So the vision of Oman is to join, yes, you can stop here. The vision of Oman is to join the developing countries. So, and that is a deep statement. So to do so, we need to have creative individuals, a diversified economy. We need really to have a very good governance. We need really to look after our environment. So all these being addressed. And we all always proud of the vision, how we formulate our visions. So I can talk about four aspects here. One, that the vision being formulated from the people, and people participate heavily on it. We visit all governorates of Oman. More than 41,000 was in the process of vision formulations. Number one. Number two, that it is not only we build on our nice history or the current situation, we build it on the futures. There was a lot of seminar on foresight, what happened to technology, to energy, to X, Y, the education, this and that. So also the vision is not only word, there is a lot of KPIs and there is a lot of change. So please move. because and here, so you will have 4 pillars: economy, society, environment, and governance. We have clear indicators, more than 78. We have 12 strategic directions and 12 national priority. I'll be more than happy to share our vision document. Immediately I can push it to the team and they can share it with you. So please, as I tell you, we already start implementing our vision from 5 months now, from 2021, and things is moving slowly because of the COVID, and but we are full of confidence. I mean, government, His Majesty Sultan Haytham made a lot of changes in the government structures to be more agile, and there is more, what they call it, moving toward the private sector, the entrepreneur, and all these things. So please move quickly on the slide. So this is national priority. You can read it at your leisure. So please move. The vision touch in all aspects. I mean, when it comes to economy, the 4 factors of capital, labor, the system, and also the relationship. Not only a relationship between government, people, society, and also our relationship with the rest of the world. The vision is really sending a very positive message to our friends, our partners from outside, that Oman is moving to new stage of development. There is a real change on what we used to do, and we are, as I tell you, we are full of confidence that we are having all the ingredients of success. So please proceed. So we are touching on all these. It will be a holistic visions. We are touching all social, political, economy. I mean, all the aspect of it being touched. Please proceed. Move quickly. I'll leave you why. I mean, why it was urgent for Oman to move. I already mentioned it about the changing in the energy landscape, and also the reform of individual mindset. So please feel free to read all this material. I think I'm about to end. Policy. It will be not easy, by the way. We understand it will be hard and it will be painful. But the good thing that we are having a caring government, which is really caring. And we are having a leader, His Majesty Sultan Haytham, who was the chief on the Vision 2040 team, and he knows the details, and he really moving with a great confidence. So please proceed. I think you can, okay, how we are going to fix our business. So proceed to the last of the presentation, just to share the last slide. Go ahead. So because I'm ending, yeah, here. This is the blue one. This is before. This is my details here, my phone numbers, my emails. And if you go one slide before, and that's explain that we are ready because of a lot of elements. We are ready, and you can read it at your leisure. And can we do it? Absolutely, we can do it. So sorry, I have only 20 minutes, so I don't want to take more. I want to hear from you, and also we welcome your advice, your guidance, your inputs on how best thing can be done. And we are going with a very strong, what they call it, plan on mind. And Oman is a small economy, and has it's moving in a very good speed. So I'm done by now. So I'll leave it to you and I'll be happy to hear some of their questions and inquiry. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf, for your presentation. I think now we've got a more comprehensive picture of Oman's development. We come from a historical background and trajectory from Dr. Mohammed's side, and then we come from a more economic and practical and pragmatic side from Dr. Yusuf. So now we have entered the Q&A segment, and I will invite our 2 speakers to turn on your video and your audio as well, so that we may take the questions head on from our audience. And again, I would like to remind our audience that you can put your questions in the chat box, type it in if you like, or you can raise your hand and we can unmute you to ask your questions. So now we have actually 2 questions. already, and I would like to have the questions rolling and flowing. The first question, and it's in two parts, and probably Dr. Muhammad can take the first part and Dr. Yusuf the second. Now, the first question is from Yo Chenzi, and he says that, how is China's relations with Oman different between now than in the past when the first contact was made? And I reserve that part of the question for Dr. Muhammad. And the second part of the question is, how will China contribute to Oman's Vision 2040, particularly after the Chinese foreign minister's recent visit? So Dr. Muhammad, if you could turn on your video and audio to answer the first part of this question, please.
Thank you for this question about Oman and China relation. As you see, Oman has this long relation even before AD. And if I said the first Arab sailor arrived in Canton was from Oman, Abu Ubaidah. And the symbolicity of this relation was the Suhar mission to China. And of course, if you see this historical relation with China, we have very strong basic of this relation. We have Omani community also lived in Canton for a long century. And now, if you see the relation between Oman and China is a continuation. And if you see about the new policy of China about the what they call it, the economic and the Silk Road. And Oman signed this treaty. The Chinese also contribute a project to build in a Duqm. We have a Duqm port. This is going to be the future of Oman. We see now the Chinese, they are participating to build a new industry city in this port. So we see we have a good relation, and Oman signed treaty with China about the route and the economic, this a new planning of China. And this continuation of a good relation between Oman and China is still very strong now, especially about the economic projects by the Chinese in the port and Sohar and Musandam. So Oman still have a good relation, and the Chinese company, they are participating in the economy of Oman. And I think Dr. Yusuf, he might be knows about the Chinese project in the Duqm project, because about the Indian Ocean rim, we are part of the Indian Ocean rim. And the Chinese now, they have this planning of the Silk Road by sea and by the land. So we signed this treaty with the China. So we have a good relation, positive relation, and continuation relation. This, of course, if you see from the first AD, you have ships from Canton to Sohar in Oman. Now we have a new project, a vision of the Oman economy about the Duqm project. Dr. Yusuf can explain about this more. So we have Chinese participating to invest in this port. So it's great, Oman. That's why I said Oman, as Dr. Clements, he started with the strategic location, the map of Oman. So we can understand why you have a good relation with China. Shukran.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you. Dr. Yusuf, would you like to add on to Dr. Muhammad's answer?
Yes, I'd like to build on what Dr. Muhammad was saying. I don't have much more to add, but honestly, the vision has 12 national, what they call it, strategic directions. One of them is enhancing Oman international cooperations. And we are working on attracting a very sizable foreign direct investment. And China being one of really our strategic partner. To be honest, very little being done so far. And the relation of Oman and China can be doubled maybe 5 times. The problem that we are also having, we are as Omani, unfortunately, not good on marketing ourselves and marketing our country beauty, marketing our business opportunity. That's why, I mean, as I tell you, the country is turning now to a new direction where we would like to encourage assembly to be positioned in Duqm, as Dr. Muhammad mentioned. And honestly, I now I move from the government to the private business to just make it easy for anyone to like to explore the opportunity. Anyone has, for example, factory, or he's in a business line, or he knows his relative, his what they call it, colleagues in the university, having a business, we will be able, and it is the right time. Government badly trying to push Chinese, they aren't, they are having some foreign direct investment, but still not reaching our expectations. I think this direction, you will notice that Oman will be pushing hardly, and you know, there's a huge competition. I mean, Chinese, they are well positioned in UAE and now going to Saudi and in Qatar, and Oman geographically, historically, are in a better position to enhance the relation. But it is need to be win-win in the end formula for Chinese, to that they can make it, sit their warehousing here from Oman to the world, from Duqm to the rest of the world. And I think a lot of positive opportunity can be achieved.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. I think we'll move on with the questions because we have quite a number coming in already. Another question from the audience, and I think this is more appropriate for Dr. Muhammad, is about Ibadism. Question, it says that what is the continued relevance of Ibadism, and can you explain a bit about this philosophy and how is it still relevant today? That's for Dr. Muhammad. The second question from Amir Hassan Monajemi, I think this is probably more appropriate for Dr. Yusuf, is what is the role of modern technology in Oman's Vision 2040? For example, data analytics, AI, and soft services. So let's start with Dr. Muhammad on Ibadism.
You know, as you said, did you hear me, Clemens?
Yes, yes.
As you said, you know, from my first talk about to understand Oman history, you know, Ibadism was as a part of the Islamic sect, and they started in Iraq. But the Ibadi, they have a great experience in Oman history. The Ibadism is a part of the Islamic sect. You have Sunni, Shia, and Ibadi, and the Ibadi are very tolerant. And if you see in Oman, like we don't have sectarian, we never in Oman have history conflict between Sunni or Shia or Ibadi. But the Ibadi, as I said, as the Imamate, they started from the 9th century. The first Imamate, we have the second Imamate. Then we have in the 20th century Imamate. Now, with His Majesty, unite all the Omani from the south to the north. In Oman, all tolerance about the sectarian. Ibadi is a part of Omani, large community of Omani Abadi. We have Sunni, we have Shia, and you know, we pray in the same mosque, not in the other country. That's why I said Ibadism as a concept to build Islamic state, but with more tolerance. That's why, but in a history, long history, they have experience to establish the first Imamate, the second Imamate, the third, then the last one, it was in the 20th century with His Majesty vision. Oman, all Omani, whatever you are, united under his leadership to build a new modern state with peace, with tolerance to understand each other. So Oman, that's why I said Oman's history is unique, you know. In Oman, you cannot say, well, I am a Abadi, I am a Sunni, I am a Shia. No, we are all equal. We are all one society, like a brothers, you know. So if you go to another country, what you see now about the conflict, about this sectarian in Yemen, about in Iraq or in Syria, you will not find it in Oman, but we still have, you know, the demography of people. They are Abadi, they are Sunni, they are Shia, you know. But if you see, to understand Oman history, because Ibadism played a strong history in Oman from 9th century until the 20th century. Now we have a mufti in Oman. Like in Egypt, you have Sheikh al-Azhar, they call it mufti of Sheikh al-Azhar. So Oman, that's why I said that Oman is a peace, a stability, and very peaceful community. If you come to Muscat, we have from India. We have Indian Hindus, Sikh, Muslim, live together as a community. I went to Singapore, to Muscat Street. If you see the Arab section there, they have Muscat Street in Singapore. So Ibadism is a very tolerant sect, peaceful community. All the international live in a peace without conflict. So thanks to God, with His Majesty vision, with His modernization state, all this sector live together in a peace. And we look to build, as Dr. Yusuf talking about 2040, with a good vision, inshallah, with a good relation with the international communities. So Ibadism, I said, very sick, is one of the Islamic sect, but very peaceful and very tolerance.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed.
Yeah.
Dr. Yusuf, back to the question by Amir Hassan on technology. What will be the role of technology in 2040? And if I could just add on to his question, because we have another question here from Matthew Gray, is on the state's role to private sector development. Do you think the state can and should play this important role? Because Oman has already some world-class state-owned firm and others that were established by the state, but now privately owned. So should the state be actually the driver of such economic development? That's from Matthew Gray. So you have two parts of the question to answer, Dr. Yusuf, if you could unmute yourself.
Yeah, I'll start with Matthew because I know him and I think we meet in several conferences. See, I mean, a state will, I mean, the one of the features of the vision is the what they call it, the partnership between state and businesses and the society. The state is still the engine of growth, but gradually is moving to give more, but they will be ceding a lot of what they call it, directions for, see, Oman in terms of the agricultures, of the fisheries, of the oil and gas downstream, upstream. It needs still that state need to play an important role and will continue playing that, but we try to be limited. We are pushing now for more privatizations of a lot of state-owned enterprises, because honestly, we strongly believe that production, export, this is not the government or state role. They are a very important role. They are playing a very important role, but that maybe was before. For Vision 2040, the role need to go a little bit to more into the business environment, putting the right law, right conditions, enhance the business landscape, instead of going and competing with the local and international business. For vision implementation, we are having 5 programs. I will not speak about the all 5. I'll speak only about one of them, which is National Digitalizations Program, to move not only the government to digital. We are talking here about people moving to be more use automated digitalizations, and also businesses. It is an international trend. It's not a choice for Oman to they need really to play it seriously, and the government seriously allocating budget now to ensure that this direction of our program for national digitalization program is really on board. And honestly, myself, I'm looking for partner or businesses who is good in data mining, data making market surveys, seeing the gap, seeing the direction, what is needed here, what kind of goods is missing on the Oman economy, who's producing that goods internationally, to play the link. So I'm really, if any of the participants can really also help on that, or he knows people who can help, we can really form a kind of a JV or partnership. So we are into digitalization and we are moving toward it.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. I see a hand on a raised hand on from the audience. If you could unmute yourself, Nahil, to ask your question, please. Nahil? Okay, I think we'll move on to our next question. We've got another question from the floor that says, much has been said about diversification, but none of the speakers mentioned tourism as a potential growth driver. Why? Why is this when barriers are low? There are many possible attractions in Oman and potentially a large local workforce. And when will Oman sign the Abraham Accords alongside with the other two Gulf states? So I don't know who wants to take this question. Maybe Dr. Mohammed, you can take the second part of the question if you like, on the relationship with Israel.
Well, if I understand the question about the tourism, yeah, or about what?
Abraham Accords.
Huh?
The Abraham Accords, the normalization of relations with Israel.
Oh, you know, Oman, if you see, Oman always has this peaceful international relation. Oman believe in a peace in the Middle East. And this peace, if you see the relation with Israel, you must recognize the Palestinian state. Oman has embassy in the West Bank, in Ramallah. Oman has a relation with Israel because Oman believe this conflict will not solve by war. It will solve by a peace between the Israelis and the Palestinians. And Oman position always with recognition of the Palestinian people to build their state and the East Jerusalem to be the capital. So this relation aim to have a peace in the Middle East. If you see the Middle East for the long wars since 1947, and the continuation and stability, who's going to suffering from this war is the people. So that's Oman vision about the peace and the mediation of Oman in this crisis. The aim is to have peace between Israelis and the Palestinians and to have peace in this region. And we hope, you know, this vision will be succeed in the long run, if you see that what's happened in the region. This is the Oman view about the peace with Israel and the Palestinians. Shukran.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed.
Thank you.
Dr. Yusuf, back to the question on tourism as a means of diversification. What is its potential? I'm going to add on to that with another question from James Sidaway. What is the key focus for port development as well, with several strategic ports in Oman, and which one, if any, is going to be prioritized? So these two questions, one on ports and one on tourism.
The both are linked. See, Oman has 5. They identify in this the 10th development plan, which is the first 5 plan for the vision. There is 5 strategic sectors. One of them is tourism, then mining, logistic, manufacturing, and so both logistic and tourism are being identified as our strategic focus, our strategic directions. I totally understand that we have done so little. The country is so beautiful. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. It is really a beautiful country. And we have done, we are also, you need to understand that we are a conservative nations. I mean, we don't want Oman to be also a dump for people to come, and we are very selective. And we are really looking for, see, identity and what they call it, protecting our identity, protecting our culture. All these is an important element. They are, I think, our state are very concerned about it. But it is an art. See, going to tourism, going to logistic, going to manufacturing, it is an art. We don't have really the key. For example, I mean, for example, for tourism, you need good people on marketing the destinations. You need good people on adventures. How that make, we don't have really. I mean, that's why we want to attract players and businesses to Oman who has experience in adventures, because people normally, beauty is everywhere, but how to have a fishing adventures, go to a desert crossing adventure, go to Wadi, go to Wahiba Sands, go to Jabal al-Akhdar. So people are looking for an experience. And honestly, I'm really, we are looking for people who has really experience on that. When it comes to the board, we are having 4 boards. All are up to what they call, they are 5-star. We have Salala, we have Duqm, we have Suhar, and we have Muscat. Each, I mean, they are all working complementary. There is now a good emphasis. I mean, we focus on Duqm because Salala, they are really busy and they are up to their best currently. Suhar is progressing, and to me, we are in the beginning of the race. And I think we are having huge potential because, as Dr. Mohammed mentioned, locations, and because of also our international history of trade. I mean, Portuguese came here in the first because of our importance in trade. And I think, I mean, a lot of countries recognize that. And, you know, I think that's why that gives us a confidence that we are, yes, we do have a huge challenges, but also we are having a huge opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. I'm going to start grouping the final questions because we have quite a few on the list, and I'm going to group them in terms of similarities and put them forward. And it seems that most are very interested in Oman's economic development and relations elsewhere in its foreign policy. So I'm going to group them. The first one is from Bernie from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he asked how and which specific areas can Singapore work with Oman in the context of Vision 2040. The second question is about Oman's comparative advantage in the GCC, and I think this comes from Gerald Lim and my colleague Tan Feng Chin, who both of them wants to know what is Oman's economic and comparative advantage in the GCC and what is relationship with Iran. Okay, and the final part, and I think this is about expat numbers and the expat demographic balance or imbalance in Oman, and this comes from Nahil and Isha Panwar, and the question really is, you know, what is the role will be played between the expat community in Oman compared to the local national community. So I think Dr. Yusuf, you're more on these economic aspects. You're better positioned to answer these questions.
See, I mean, when it comes for expat, as I tell you, I mean, we are having kind of some structural problem when it comes to the laborers. Okay, we are having very few people from let's say China, from Singapore, from others. They are really well educated. Majority of our expat are from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. But that, I'm not exaggerating here. If you ask any, I mean, any expat who work in the whole GCC, he will mention that Oman is the best. We treat them as real brother families, and you know, we are, I don't know, that is our natures. We are too good. I mean, that expat feeling home. I mean, and that is, we are not pretending to be a good people. That is how we are. And that's why if you ask any expat who work in GCC, Saudi, Emirati, Kuwait, he said the best, I want to be in Oman. People are humble, people are friendly. Life is easy. We don't have very complicated formula to stay in Oman and to interact with Omani. I mean, you can really with so easy that to be. That's number one. Number two, see, we are working, I mean, in the vision, and why I would like to send this presentation to all the participants, because I try in the last 3 slides, I try to summarize Oman comparative advantages and also whether we are ready for business or for attracting investment or not. So I really like you to forward my presentation, and please go to my website, Oman Invest Getaway, Oman Investment Getaway, and go to publications. I have 4 books published. I have a lot of articles all about foreign investment, about partnership with Oman, about the vision, about how we can really build a bridge. And I'm really also ready to facilitate that, free of cost. We'd like to do that because that's our vision. And we want really to produce and provide service from Oman, not only to the local demand, even to our neighbors, to Africa, to Yemen. And I really encourage you to really be in touch. Anyone has an idea or he knows business who might think has a potential, let us know. We will try to make it easy. And in the end, decision is yours. I mean, or to the investors. The problem that Oman, we always saying that it is a hidden treasuries. It is, nobody knows about it, but it has a lot to offer.
Yeah, Dr. Yusuf, maybe I give half a minute for each speaker to say which areas specific to the relationship between Singapore and Oman where we can work and develop on, and that was from a previous question as well. And then we can end off from there. So, Dr. Muhammad from history, what do you think?
Well, you know, Dr. Kelmet, you hear me now?
Yes.
You know, if you see the project of Omani jewelry of Muscat, and this jewelry built in by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and is gift to the museum in Singapore. We have a good relation with Singapore. Sultan Qaboos University, for example, have a good relation with many universities in Singapore. And I think we learn a lot from Singapore economic development, tourism development, and also a peaceful community. You see, if you said we have tolerant society, we have a good international community, and I think Singapore as example of a good progress, a harmony among the communities, and a good advantage also about education. You have very good economic, you have very good education system. That's why I said Sultan Qaboos University has a connection with the university in Singapore. And in education, I think we have a great opportunity. I remember 2005, I went to the Minister of Higher Education to Australia, and we have a big program to visit Singapore also. So we have a good element, a good sharing, and simplicity, and a very good example of a nation to build a good modern state. So we can learn a lot from your country, beautiful country. Very peaceful community, very good economy, good education, a good discipline, you know. So we learn a lot from your country, a beautiful country. That's why I said at the simplest of this jewelry of Muscat, it was gift to the museum in Singapore. So
Thank
we
you,
have
Dr. Muhammad.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So educational and cultural cooperation. Dr. Yusuf, would you like to add on that as the last word?
Yes, I mean, see, I mean, we almost start at the same time, by the way, Singapore and Oman, and I mean, the paradigm shift. We know all Singapore before. You guys, maybe, I mean, how they start from scratch, from nothing. Okay, then they move quickly, improving. But the good thing we need to learn here, how Singaporean being inspired to believe in their ability to do it. I mean, to go from nothing to the total. I mean, education system, how logistic industry being built on in Singapore. Uh, I've been I've been to Singapore. I have a course in civil service college. I think it is a nice place, nice country, great people, very expensive, although. And there is a quite similarity even in the role of institutions. How what civil service, for example, college play a role on educating the businesses, maybe business. Also, Singapore good on really what they call it, fighting corruptions. Good on really connecting the dot. I mean, because that is the logistic in the end. I mean, in the end, you need. I mean, one element cannot succeed alone. Singapore succeed to have financial element, to have also educated labor force, and to have a good infrastructures. And they build the institution, strong institution to deliver. So I share what and I agree with what Dr. Mohammed saying. And I think it's not going to happen naturally. We are really accounting our friend in Singapore to also be proactive and try to also help us. I mean, we know that also a lot of potential for Singaporean in Oman, and we are also would like to join hand and to what they call it, succeed together. And thank you for this opportunity. It was really a great pleasure to me to speak and to this wonderful crowd. My email, my contact, everything is there. Please feel free to communicate, and looking forward.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. And with that, we come to the end of today's segment, episode 5 on Oman. And on behalf of the Middle East Institute, I thank our two distinguished speakers, Dr. Yusuf Abelushi and Dr. Muhammad Al-Muqaddam. Thank you very much for joining us. And also thank you to our audience for your lively questions, which provided such a robust discussion. And I think this is our first webinar where we have this amount of questions. So that's all very great. And we hope you tune in next Friday on our episode on the UAE Federation, the Dubai model, and Abu Dhabi's leadership next Friday, same time. So see you all and take care.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Maslama.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Really great.